A few months back, I made this video sharing 6 of my favorite questions to ask when interviewing people for the role of a Scrum Master. You've requested a part 2, and here it is today. 3 super hard behavioral questions to ask in your next interview, together with their answers. This video will be from the point of view of the interviewer so that you as an interviewer can get in our minds. Question number 1. A product owner assigns user stories to specific team members. As a Scrum Master, how do you react? What I'm really trying to find out here is if the interviewee knows what's in the sprint? What happens in the sprint? What's the role of a product owner in the sprint? What's the role of developers, the Scrum Master in the sprint? Who assigns work to whom in the sprint? How does the product owner and the Scrum Master interact during the sprint? First, we need to understand what types of user stories are being assigned to team members. Stories from the sprint backlog or stories from the product backlog? If it's stories from the sprint backlog, that's not ideal, that's not recommended, but it's still better than stories being assigned from the product backlog. Let's talk about the sprint backlog later. Let's focus right now on the product backlog. So the product backlog is the central repository of all the user stories that are not in the sprint backlog. Priority user stories ordered in terms of priority with the most priority items on top. We are saying here that during a sprint, the product owner is assigning stories from the product backlog, not the sprint backlog, from the product backlog to people in the sprint. Unplanned work. During the sprint planning, remember, the developers committed on a list of user stories, on a list of tasks, on a sprint goal for the sprint. We are saying here that the product owner is taking work that was not committed on, that was not planned, and assigning it to team members. That's not recommended. That's an horrible behavior. It should stop right now. The team committed on a list of user stories and especially a sprint goal. What the product owner is doing here is distracting the team from meeting their sprint goal. Now, the user story might be a priority. In the middle of a sprint, we realize that we need to do this user story right now. We can't wait for the next sprint. This shouldn't happen often, but it still can happen. And the product owner can request that this user story moves from the product backlog into the sprint backlog. But the product owner can't take this decision by themselves. No, it's a team decision. We need to negotiate with the developers because they committed on the sprint goal. Everything can happen during the sprint, but it shouldn't impact the sprint goal. The sprint goal remains. So we can negotiate with the developers, maybe in terms of capacity. They can remove other stuff from the sprint, other user stories from the sprint to pick up this new item. Or if they have the capacity to do it, they just pick it up and move a story from the product backlog into the sprint backlog, and the developers will start working on the user story during the sprint. Now, scenario number 1 that we talked about previously. During the sprint, there's a sprint backlog, user stories in the sprint backlog, and the product owner is assigning work, taking stories, user stories from the sprint backlog and assigning work to team members. Is it good behavior? No, it's not. It's not. If you're using the Scrum framework, the team should be self-managed, deciding what to build, how to build it, who builds it, and by when to build it. All these decisions during the sprint or prior to the sprint are made by the team, for the team. The product owner is more concerned about the why we are doing it and the what we are doing. The team decides how to build it because they are doing the work, and who builds it because they are doing the work. They are doing the work. How can the product owner know if someone is skilled enough to do something, or if this person has capacity to do it, or if a person has accesses to even work on it? The product owner doesn't know. Let the developers self-organize between themselves, self-manage themselves. No need to micromanage them. Trust that they will do the job. You should be concerned about why we are doing it, to motivate the team, to drive the team, and also what we are doing. That's your concern as a product owner. Let the team decide how to build it and who builds it. Let them self-manage about themselves. If you decide for them, you should start assigning work to people. You are telling developers that you know better. That you know better than them. Do you feel that it makes sense? Let the person doing the work decide how to do the work. Question number 2. What if the product owner doesn't agree with the Scrum Master? Still wants to assign work to team members during the sprint? What do you do as a Scrum Master? A difficult product owner is quite common. And what I'm trying to find out here is if a candidate knows how to manage this conflict with a product owner, how to interact with a product owner, communicate with a product owner, persuade the product owner. And the best way to answer this question question is starting with a why. You realize that most often product owners are not on the same page with a Scrum Master or developers because we are not going into the same direction. So start with a direction first. Why does the product owner feel that they need to micromanage or assign tasks to developers? Did they really understand the Scrum framework? Did they really understand the Agile principles, the Agile values? Start with that first. Go through the Agile principles again. Go through the Scrum framework again, where it's mentioned that the team should be self-managed and why the team needs to be self-managed. The product owner wants to provide value to their customers, to meet the expectations of directors, of upper management in the company. Same as for the developers. They want the same thing, and you need, as a Scrum Master, to convince them that the Scrum framework is what will bring them that thing. If they follow it correctly, as per the book, if they follow the Scrum framework and Agile principles as they are supposed to be followed, trust the process and you'll get the result. The result, customers will be satisfied and stakeholders, directors, upper management people, they will be satisfied. Trust the process. Trust people in the team and see what happens. You're doing an experiment. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You can choose something else. But for now, experiment with it. Sell that like that to the product owner and they will be convinced. Who doesn't want to try something knowing that at the end of the day, there's a chance that sponsors, directors, customers will be all satisfied and the product owner will get a big fat bonus. Question number 3. How will you as a Scrum Master ensure that the team meets their deadlines for completion of action items? That's a tricky question. The first thing I want to know from the interviewee is if they understand what action items are. I can't tell you how many times when people hear action items and deadline, they think user stories, tasks that we need to do in the sprint. So they start replying based on that. They start telling what does a Scrum Master do when the team doesn't meet their deadlines for user story. No. Action items. If you've done at least one sprint retrospective, you already know that action items are improvement items that we talked about in the sprint retrospective. When someone says that, when someone links action items to user stories, I already know that they don't use Scrum. Fake Scrum Master. Before talking about the deadline, let's talk about the sprint retrospective. So, the Scrum Master facilitates this event. Doesn't tell people what to improve. No, let the team decide what to build and how to build it. Same thing, what to improve and how to improve it. Let the team decide. You're here to facilitate the session. And if you've done that correctly, by the end of the session, you should have action items, improvement items, clear owners, and maybe a predicted delivery date, an expected delivery date. You have not done the planning yet, so it's only a prediction that the team is doing. Now, in the sprint planning session, it's recommended that we take at least one improvement item, action item in the sprint where you do the planning. We plan to do that in the sprint. To answer the question of deadline, what happens if a person who is supposed to work on this action item, or some team members, or the team who is supposed to work on this action item can't meet the deadline? What does the Scrum Master do? Well, same as any user story. The Scrum Master provides support, ask powerful questions to know why. Why are we blocked? Why can't we meet the deadline? Impediments, help them resolve the impediments. Provide the support needed. Like any other task, like any other user stories, help them get that done. Question number 4. There's a team member who considers the sprint planning event a waste of time, total waste of time, doesn't want to attend. How do you deal with that as a Scrum Master? Tricky question again. As an interviewer, I want to know if a candidate knows what's a sprint planning, what's the importance of having everyone in the sprint planning, how to manage conflict between team members, developers in the Scrum team, how to persuade people. Same as the previous question, start with the why. Do a one-to-one session with a team member, ask them why they don't want to attend the sprint planning. Let's assume here that they tell you, yeah, it's a waste of time, I don't want to attend, I don't understand it. You explain to them why we do the sprint planning, what's in it for them, why we do the sprint planning, what's their role in the sprint planning, why everyone in the team should attend the sprint planning, how do you do the sprint planning, what's the outcome, the purpose of the sprint planning, and you focus on what's in it for them. Every developer wants to build something valuable to satisfy the customer, and you tell them with the sprint planning we will be able to achieve that. Without the sprint planning, it's really hard to achieve that. And all of the other team members are attending the sprint planning. If you don't attend, how can you give your input? You're not really part of a team if you're not attending meetings or events like other team members. We need you in this event so that as a team we can achieve our goal together. And to do this, you need to trust the process, trust the Scrum framework, experiment with it, just do an experiment, go to the sprint planning, really focus on it, and we will achieve this goal together. Who doesn't understand planning? Really, planning is even done in your personal life. Everyone understands the importance of planning. They should be able to understand the importance of a sprint planning. Ask them what needs to happen in the sprint planning for you to attend, for you to see value in the sprint planning. If the team is psychologically safe, it's way better. You don't even need to do one-to-one session. Talk about that in the sprint retrospective and let other team members convince this team member on the importance of the sprint planning. Yeah, you can do that. Which brings me to my next point. If you want more tips, insights on Agile, Scrum, personal growth, click on the video that stands out the most on the screen right now. And I'll see you in a few seconds.